All right, so today we're diving deep into these rumors about the Apple AirTag 2. And these aren't just, the typical, like, oh, the battery's going to be a little better. This is like, whoa, okay, this article is suggesting some stuff that could really change how we think about tracking devices,
Well, it seems like Apple is really trying to push the AirTag beyond just like a Find My Keys type of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're really aiming for something that's like way more integrated into our lives. And I almost want to say like proactive.
Proactive. Okay, I got to hear more about that. The article did mention, like, they're saying better precision and range.
Yeah.
What makes you say proactive?
So think about it. The current AirTag, it uses Bluetooth.
Right.
And Bluetooth has limitations.
Sure.
You can't track something across a large park, for example.
Okay.
But this article is saying that the AirTag 2 might use something called ultra-wideband technology. Have you?
I've heard of that, but honestly, I couldn't explain it.
This saved my life.
It's like Bluetooth on steroids.
Okay.
Ultra-wideband. It can pinpoint location with crazy accuracy.
Wow.
Even in, like, a crowded environment.
Yeah.
Imagine you lose your wallet in a packed stadium.
Oh, gosh.
You could find it with this. That's the kind of precision.
Yeah, no more tearing apart my apartment looking for my phone.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, the article also talked about some, like, seriously beefed up anti-theft features.
Yeah.
Any guesses what those might be?
Just thinking about what the article said and how Apple has really been pushing security.
Yeah.
I think they're going to do a multi-layered approach. Like, what if your AirTag senses someone's tampering with it?
Okay.
And it, like, instantly sends you a notification or even shares its live location. So it's not just about finding lost items. It's about stopping them from being lost or stolen.
Like a little bodyguard?
Exactly.
Draw your stuff? That's awesome. And speaking of integration, I can only imagine how seamlessly this is going to fit into the whole, like, Apple ecosystem.
For sure. Apple's going to make sure this works with everything else you own.
Right.
Imagine you're at the airport. You're rushing to your gate.
Oh, yeah.
You just ask Siri to find your lost luggage.
Okay.
Or, like, you're at a cafe. Your Apple Watch tells you, hey, you left your backpack.
That would be so clutch.
It'd be so convenient.
But also, I'm curious about the personalization aspect. You know, Apple always finds a way to make their products feel kind of unique. So any thoughts on what they might do with the AirTag 2's design?
Well, I think they might go beyond just offering different colors.
Really?
Imagine being able to 3D print a custom case for your AirTag, or even getting it engraved with, like, your family crest or something.
Okay, yeah.
They could really tap into that whole, like, people wanting things to be unique, you know?
Totally. Now, let's be real for a sec. No matter how cool all the features are, battery life is king. What's the word on that front? That's a good question.
Yeah.
The article doesn't say exactly how much longer the battery will last. And you know, with all these new features, it's going to need a lot of power to keep up. So I'm curious to see what they say about that.
Yeah. Hopefully they found a way to make it last longer without compromising size or functionality or anything like that. But I guess those are the details.
Exactly. We'll have to wait and see what Apple says.
Yeah. Speaking of waiting, the article mentioned a 2025 release date.
Yeah.
You think that's realistic?
I think so. Apple's usually pretty good about sticking to their timelines.
That's true.
Especially for big product launches like this. And 2025 gives them a lot of time to, like, work out any problems and build up the hype.
Oh, they'll definitely milk that hype for all it's worth. Another question I had was about compatibility. Like, will the AirTag 2 work with older Apple devices?
Well, Apple usually tries to make their products work with older devices.
Right.
So it's probably a safe bet that the AirTag 2 will work with a bunch of older devices. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of the really fancy features only work with the newest stuff.
Makes sense. That's how they get you to upgrade, right?
Exactly. It's all part of the Apple ecosystem strategy. But to be fair, they usually do a pretty good job of making those upgrades tempting.
Yeah. No argument there.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get too caught up in all the hype, let's zoom out for a sec. What's the main takeaway from this article for you?
I think it shows us that the AirTag is going from being a simple tracker to something way more sophisticated.
Right.
We're talking about seamless integration with our digital lives, a level of proactive security that could change how we protect our stuff, and, of course, that classic Apple style and personalization.
It's like a glimpse into the future of how we'll interact with all our things. But, of course, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's something we're going to get into the next part of our deep dive.
We'll have to talk about the potential downsides.
Right.
You know, and the ethical considerations. Because as exciting as these advancements are, they also raise some important questions about privacy and, the potential for things to go wrong. It's interesting to think about, like, how these changes could affect how we think about our stuff. Like, imagine if losing things was practically unheard of. Would we even care about our possessions as much?
That's a great point. If everything is trackable, does it make us more careless or less appreciative of what we own? It's almost like a philosophical question.
It really is. And, it goes beyond just our stuff. We have to think about implications for, like, personal privacy, too.
Yeah.
Just because we can track everything doesn't mean we should.
Absolutely. The article did mention some potential security concerns.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your take. Like, what are some red flags that pop into your head?
Okay, so one obvious concern is stalking or harassment. I mean, Apple did try to prevent unwanted tracking with the original AirTag. But let's be real. Anyone who's really determined to misuse this new tech is going to try to find a way.
It's kind of scary to think that something meant to give you peace of mind could be used to hurt someone.
Exactly.
So what steps do you think Apple could take to prevent that?
Well, I think they need to do more than just notifications.
Okay.
What if the AirTag itself, like, had an alarm that went off?
Interesting.
If it sensed it was being moved without permission.
Okay.
Or maybe a system that alerts the police if an AirTag is being used suspiciously.
So it's like a constant back and forth between the people making the tech and the people trying to misuse it.
It is. It's like a cat and mouse game.
Yeah. And it really shows how important it is to keep developing cybersecurity.
Absolutely. As tech gets better, the ways to misuse it get more clever, too.
Makes sense. Okay, so besides, like, the really bad stuff, like stalking, let's talk about more practical concerns, like what if the tech just doesn't work right? What if there are glitches or it malfunctions?
Yeah. Reliability is super important, especially for something that's supposed to, give you peace of mind.
Exactly.
Can you imagine you're on a trip, you're relying on your AirTag to track your luggage, and then the battery dies, or you lose the signal in the middle of nowhere?
Oh, man, that would be so frustrating.
It just shows that no matter how fancy the tech is, it's never perfect.
Right. We can't become totally dependent on these things.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
Using these tools to make our lives better, but not relying on them so much that we're helpless if they fail.
Speaking of balance, let's zoom out again and think about the bigger picture, like how this tech could affect society as a whole.
Yeah.
The article called the AirTag 2 a next-gen tracking device. What do you think that means in the grand scheme of things?
I think it means we're heading towards a future where tracking is everywhere, seamlessly built into our daily lives. Imagine a world where every object, every suitcase, every package is trackable in real time.
That's kind of hard to even imagine the possibility.
Oh, no.
Both good and bad.
Right.
On one hand, it could be incredibly efficient and convenient, but on the other hand, it raises questions about our privacy and our right to be anonymous.
Absolutely. It's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
We have to be careful.
Yeah.
Or we could end up in a world where privacy is a luxury only for the people who can afford to opt out of being tracked all the time.
It's a slippery slope, right? We start by tracking our keys and our bags, and the next thing you know, our every purchase is being watched and analyzed.
Exactly. And that's where the ethical questions come in.
Right.
We need to seriously discuss where the line is, what level of tracking is okay, and what level is just crossing the line. Who gets to see this data, and how are they using it? These are important questions.
It sounds like there are a lot of potential problems. Do you think we're ready as a society to deal with all this?
Honestly, I'm not sure we're so quick to jump on the newest gadgets and love how convenient they are that we don't always stop to think about the long-term consequences.
It's like we're all holding our breath and jumping into the deep end without knowing how to swim.
Maybe that's a little dramatic, but there's some truth to it. We need to be more proactive about having these conversations and demanding transparency from the companies that are making this tech.
It's not about saying no to progress.
Right.
It's about making sure that progress benefits everyone without taking away our basic rights.
Exactly. It's a balancing act, but it's a conversation we need to have.
Okay, so before we get too bogged down in all the doom and gloom, let's talk about some ways that AirTag 2 could be used for good.
Sure.
Because let's face it, this tech has the potential to do a lot of good in the world.
Absolutely. And I think the key is focusing on uses that empower people and improve lives, not things that invade privacy or control people.
For example, imagine using AirTags to track medical equipment in a hospital. So you always know where the life-saving devices are, or to track sensitive shipments like vaccines or organs for transplants so they stay safe.
Those are great examples. And what about using them to help people with dementia?
Oh, yeah.
Or Alzheimer's? Having a tracker on a loved one could give families so much peace of mind.
That's a really good point. It could even save lives in an emergency.
Exactly.
It's amazing to think how this tech could be used to help the people who need it most.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about adventure. Imagine you're hiking in the wilderness, you attach an AirTag to your backpack, and your loved ones can see your location in real time. It adds a whole new layer of safety.
Totally. It could change how we explore the world. You know, people could go further and take more risks because they know they can be found if something happens.
It's exciting to think about all the possibilities.
It is.
But as we've been saying, it's important to approach these advancements with caution.
Right.
And really think critically about them.
It's not about just blindly accepting every new technology. It's about being aware of the potential risks and benefits and demanding that the companies making these devices are transparent and accountable for what they're doing.
Well said. Okay, so in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to look at some different perspectives on the AirTag 2 and how it could change things.
We'll hear from people who aren't so sure about these advancements.
Right.
The people who think the risks might be bigger than the rewards.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll keep unpacking the complexities of the AirTag 2 and how it might shape the future of tracking. Welcome back to our deep dive. You know, we've talked about the good stuff with the AirTag 2, the convenience, the safety features.
Yeah.
But just like with anything new, there are always people who say, wait a minute.
Right.
What about this? Or what about that?
It's good to have those voices.
Yeah.
You know, the ones who challenge the hype.
Totally.
And make us think about the other side of the coin.
So for this last part of our deep dive, let's put on our skeptic hats for a minute.
Okay.
And think about some arguments against this kind of advanced tracking.
So what are some of the reasons people might be hesitant about this?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one thing you hear a lot is that it creates a culture of distrust. You know, if we're always tracking our stuff and our loved ones, does that mean we don't trust them to be honest or responsible?
That's an interesting thought. It's like we're getting peace of mind, but maybe losing a little bit of trust along the way.
Right. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Do you think that's a valid concern?
I think it depends on how the tech is used. You know, if it becomes normal to track your partner's or your kid's every move, that could definitely damage trust and create problems.
For sure. It's all about finding the right balance.
Exactly.
Using these tools responsibly, not letting them control our relationships.
Right. Another worry I've heard is that all this tracking could actually limit our freedom.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if people know they're being watched all the time, it can make them change their behavior and avoid doing things they might normally do.
It makes sense.
Think about it. Would you feel comfortable going to a protest?
Probably not.
Or speaking out about something controversial if you knew someone was tracking your every move?
That's a scary thought.
It is. It's like living in a world where you're always being watched.
And on top of that, we can't forget about data breaches. And misuse of information. I mean, the more data we have about ourselves, the more vulnerable we are to hackers and identity theft.
And even governments could use this kind of data.
So it's a trade-off. The convenience and security these devices offer might come at the cost of our privacy and our freedom to make our own choices.
Exactly. It's not about rejecting technology altogether.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful and demand that our rights are protected.
So where do we go from here? How do we make sure these advancements are used for good and not for control or oppression?
I think it starts with education. We need to talk openly and honestly about the potential benefits and risks and involve everyone in the conversation.
It's not just about the tech itself. It's about what kind of society we want to live in, one where technology helps us or one where it controls us.
Well said. That's the big question, isn't it?
It really is, and I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive.
I agree.
We've covered so much, the technical stuff, the ethical dilemmas. But the biggest takeaway is this technology is a tool, and it's up to us to decide how to use it.
We can choose to enjoy the convenience and the security while still being aware of the potential downsides. We can demand transparency from the companies and fight for strong privacy protections.
It's all about finding that balance between moving forward with technology and being responsible and careful at the same time.
That's the challenge of living in this digital age, for sure.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
It was great to be here.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.